In a world where heroes are born from struggle, not privilege, one man rises above the chaos. Terrance Rivers, homeless, overlooked, but far from powerless, finds himself thrust into a battle bigger than the streets he calls home. With his newfound abilities, he must decide. Will he fight for justice, or will the weight of his past pull him under? This is the story of Homeless Homeboy Volume 1. 18-year-old Terrance Rivers raced out of the burger joint where he worked, tossing a quick over-the-shoulder goodbye. "See you later, Mr. G." Barely half an hour later, Terrance pulled up to his small, run-down apartment. Shock and panic washed over him when he saw his belongings strewn outside, an unmistakable sign that he'd been evicted far sooner than expected. Heart-pounding, he rushed to the property office, hoping there had been some mistake. Instead, he was met by Mr. Franklin, the property manager, who barely offered a glance of sympathy.
"You're 2 months late on rent."
That single, blunt statement shattered Terrance's hopes. He tried to protest, mentioning the 30-day notice he'd received only 2 days prior, but the reality was clear. There would be no last-minute reprieve, no renegotiation of terms. In a haze of anger and disbelief, Terrance was forced to accept that he'd just lost the little space he called home. Mr. Franklin sat rigidly behind his desk, glaring at Terrance with an impatient, dismissive air. The tension in the small office was palpable, as he insisted that Terrance leave immediately, regardless of how close he was to catching up on rent. Terrance, stunned and furious at being evicted without any mercy, reminded Mr. Franklin that he needed just 2 more paychecks to settle his debt. But the landlord cut him off, scoffing at Terrance's hopes, lumping him in with the other so-called
"rapper guys,"
a label that instantly sent Terrance's frustration over the edge. Unable to contain his anger, Terrance snapped back. He hurled a biting insult at Mr. Franklin's appearance and breath, demanding to know what right the landlord had to judge him. Seemingly unfazed, Mr. Franklin threatened to call the cops if Terrance didn't leave, making it clear there would be no room for negotiation. Realizing the confrontation was headed nowhere, Terrance spun on his heel and yanked open the door. As he stepped out, he shot Mr. Franklin a final glare and muttered,
"Man, I'm out of here."
The office door slammed shut behind him, and with that abrupt exit, Terrance's world took yet another hard turn. Now he had no roof over his head, no time left to reason with anyone, and nowhere to go. Terrance stepped outside, still reeling from the eviction, when his phone began to vibrate in his pocket. He answered hesitantly, recognizing his boss's voice on the other end. Through a strained sigh, Mr. Gillard mentioned a recent shortage in the restaurant's cash drawers and some newly reviewed camera footage.
"I saw you stuffing cheeseburgers in your pockets,"
Came the quiet accusation.
"We have